work for the Public Services in the Water Division, and I'm just a rank and filer, but I am the guy, if you're in San Bruno doing a lawn begone, that will come out and measure your lawn. So, and I'll lead you step by step, basically, if you need it, through the process. So. About BAWSCA. BAWSCA is the agency that represents your interests pretty much. One of the good things is BAWSCA's goal: high quality supply of water at a fair price. And now everybody knows prices are going up for water. So it's going to be BAWSCA's going to find us ways to keep it down and find us ways to use our water better that'll save us money. And that's pretty much what this program is partially about. This class objective is that outdoor water use is the single largest untapped opportunity for water conservation in the BAWSCA service area. Okay, and that means getting a better bang out of your buck for your water. And really, lawns, we're finding out, is really not the way to go. You can have just some beautiful gardens with less lawn. Lawn begone. Okay. These are all the participating agencies, which I'm sure all of you are covered by one of those. The big thing about lawn begone is they've got, and BAWSCA has a great website where you can really get into the water from all aspects of it. But we have a few little things that we're looking at when you're thinking about going in the lawn begone program. You have to have a minimum of 200 square feet that you're going to convert of lawn, which almost everybody has that. Yeah, if you don't just have a garden on a deck of an apartment building. And it's got to be visible from the street. It's a program, we're going to use it as an advertisement for everybody to do it. So it doesn't necessarily have to be just the front, but if your side yard's visible from the street, then that'll be good too. So.
Do you only cover San Bruno?
We do. Yes, I do. Because it's a city project for us. But all those other agencies will be pretty much doing the same thing. It's a program that's got guidelines. Oh, the other thing is that if you find something that is not, like in the list of plants, I don't know if there is a plant, drought-resistant plant not listed on there, but I'm sure there is, because most of those are natives. Right? But if you find something that is drought-resistant, and we can find information that it is, and you would like to use it, we would probably let you use it. We're mean to be flexible about the whole program, because it's something that we feel real strong about. These are a couple of other programs that we have, and I think we'll probably be offering this for a long time to come. And all our programs are renewed every year, and it's, I think, fiscal year is like June to May, or July to June through June. And so if you see an old card around for 2011, doesn't mean that the program is stopped. It's just probably that it's an old card. So we're really proactive on this kind of stuff, and we'll probably keep programs going and going. So, all right. Now this class is about native plants. And I'd like to introduce Sherry Osaka. Okay. And she's a licensed landscape architect, a Bay-friendly qualified designer, and she is co-founder of the Sustainable Landscape Roundtable. And that's an organization which encourages local landscape professionals to adopt ecological practices and she's a director of the local chapter of the California Native Plant Society. So I think she knows what she's talking about. She speaks about and implements ecological landscaping techniques, including drought-tolerant native plants, drip irrigation, non-toxic garden maintenance, gray water and rainwater systems, which that's something I'm very
That'll be the next thing we'll do, yes.
Yes. She founded Sustainable Landscape Designs in 1997. She's got a degree in engineering and landscape architecture, and she enjoys merging ecological systems with design elements to achieve long-lasting and sustainable results in the landscape. So this time, Sherry Osaka.
Thank you, Frank. I appreciate it.
Oh, one little thing. Somewhere hiding in the background is our BAWSCA representative, Lourdes
Yeah.
Enriquez. She'll be taking pictures, so smile if she's ever around.
Thank you. Yes. So thank you all for coming out, spending your Saturday morning. It is beautiful outside. We are going to have a great, great time out there. I heard, how many people were here last weekend? Good. So last weekend's class was the irrigation. We're not going to talk much about the irrigation. We're going to talk a little bit. We're going to see how they finish it up, and we'll talk just very little about that. And mostly we're going to be focusing on how to remove lawn, the Lawn Be Gone program, and then we're going to be actually planting the rest of the garden and mulching and sheet mulching, so you'll learn some really good new skills, new gardening skills. But before we do that, I did want to go over a couple of things that hopefully, sometimes we have to hit things a couple of times so that we really understand them. And I think doing a lecture and then doing hands-on is really the way to go. And I want to really thank BAWSCA, not only for doing these free classes, but also for really trying to do more hands-on classes. Because a lot of us, we see it as a lecture, but there's nothing like going out and getting our hands dirty, and we are going to get a little dirty today. So that's a good thing. All right, so I did want to talk to you a little bit about a study, because we know that what BAWSCA said was this is landscape renovation, and lowering our landscape water use is an untapped resource for water. We know our water bills are going up. There's a lot of infrastructure for our water systems. A lot of you probably get your water from Hetch Hetchy. There's a lot of retrofits that they're doing to that. I'm down in the South Bay in San Jose. We've got a lot of reservoirs. They all need to be retrofitted also. So there's a lot of infrastructure and money that goes into those systems, and we need to maintain them, and that costs money to do that. And that's a lot of what the Bay Area is doing right now. That's some of the reason why our rates are going up. We also know that this is a drought year. In San Jose, we're about half of what we normally get in a year. So last year was a good year. That's great, because at least our reservoirs are full. So hopefully we're not going to have too many restrictions, water restrictions this summer. But anything we can do now is going to be great for the future, because California does get periodic droughts. That is the way it's going to be forever and ever. We are going to get years and years where we just don't get the average rainfall that we typically do, or the snowpack. We also know that more and more people are moving into California. It's actually gone down because of the economy. We're leveled off a little bit. We're not expecting as much of an increase, but the Bay Area is still doing pretty well, and we are still going to get some more people in. So this is we all talk about how you can save water in the garden by doing some of these techniques. The city of Santa Monica actually did a study on it. So from 2004 to 2010, they took two side-by-side gardens. One they landscaped in a traditional way with foundation shrubs, a lot of shrubs and things from Europe, and a lot of lawn. The other one they did with native plants, no lawn, and pervious paving. Now that's something that you're going to want to know about. How many people are thinking about taking out their lawn, their front lawn? Good, excellent. So as I go through the presentation, I'll talk about a couple of different things. Some drought-tolerant plants, but I really want to make sure you understand what pervious paving is, because you can't put non-pervious paving. So typical concrete, when it rains, it'll soak in a tiny bit of water, but most of it runs off, right? We see our driveways and the rain hits and it just goes shooting off into the gutters and out to the bay. Pervious paving has spaces in it that allow the water to soak through. I have a couple of examples, but I want to mention it. So what you see here, I mean, you really can't see it, but in the native garden, you see this kind of beige colored paving area. That's actually decomposed granite. Think of it like sand, but it's sand that kind of packs down. So it's a firm surface, but it also lets water percolate through. That's one of the most inexpensive ways to add pervious paving. There's also pervious concrete, pervious asphalt. There's also interlocking pavers. You all know what those pavers are, and I'll show you a picture at the very end. Interlocking pavers, some of them are pervious and some of them are not. So you really have to do your research. Not all interlocking pavers are pervious. Sometimes they have little spaces between them that lets the water go through. Now we're seeing a new kind where the paver itself actually lets the water just flow right through. That is good I mean, the reason why BAWSCA does that, and the reason why a lot of the rebate programs do that, is we're trying to get water into our aquifers. We have some underground aquifers. We really want the water to get in there. The other really good reason about getting water into the ground is that there are microorganisms that break down any chemicals, or most chemicals, before it gets into our aquifers. Getting water into the ground actually cleans the water. Whereas when you just send it out to the bay, then we have a lot of water pollution problems with it. So there's lots of good reasons to do pervious. Okay, so we have this study, and the big thing that they found was how much water that they saved in can everybody see that? The native garden versus the traditional garden. They saved a lot of water, probably about a fifth the amount of water that a traditional garden takes. No surprise, if you're irrigating a lawn, you're probably putting water down 3 times a week at the height of summer, in July and August. If you do native plants or drought-tolerant Mediterranean plants, whatever, once they're established, it's probably once every 2 weeks. Sometimes no water at all. I'll show you a little bit about that. Or maybe once a month you'll be watering. You'll be watering deeply, but you won't be watering nearly as much. The other thing they found was the amount of green waste really went down, but not by as much as the water. But the other thing I like to show people about is the labor went down considerably. Right? This is what everybody that I talk to, all my clients say, I want low water and low maintenance. The two go hand in hand. So you can really save a lot of labor. And I found that in my own garden. I'll talk a little bit about that. Okay, but just some real basics. I always like to tell people to, just 2 things. Check your water meter once a year. If you do the Lawn Be Gone program, they'll come out and do that for you. But you want to check your water meter at least once a year to make sure you have no leaks anywhere. No sense in wasting any water. That's step number 1. So if you're not going to do a lawn retrofit, go home and check your water meter. I'll tell you exactly how to do it. You turn off all the water in your house. No washing machine on, nothing should be on. You put on a pair of nice gloves. You get a long handled screwdriver and you open up your concrete meter box, because you need that screwdriver to kind of lever it up. I'm not strong enough just to pull that off. So you get a long-handled screwdriver and just kind of pull the top off. You have your gloves on, and you go in there and get all the spiders out of the way and everything and flip open the lid. on your water meter. And it'll look something like this. Does everybody know where their water meter is? Right by the street? It's very easy. So you'll see a little needle there, and I'm showing a picture of that little needle. So look at where the needle is. Don't worry about any of the numbers. Just look at the needle. Look at where the needle is. Walk away for, say, 15 minutes. Come back. That needle should be in exactly the same spot. If it's not, you have a leak someplace. I've lived in my house 18 years. I've had 3 major leaks in my, usually they were outside. You know the little sinks and faucets and things that are dripping, but you may not know when you have an irrigation leak outside. So it's really good just to do this once a year and just get that out of the way. And remember that not only is water related to our water bill, but water is also related to the amount of energy that we use as a state. The estimates are that 20% of all the energy used in the state goes to transporting, heating, and cleaning water. So anytime we save water, we also save energy. This is a picture of the State Water Project, which takes water from the Sierras all the way down to LA. It's 444 miles long. That was the project that was built with our last big state water bill that came through. We're trying to do another water bill this year. We'll see if that goes through. It takes a lot of energy to get over the hills and transport that. And here's a reservoir high in the Hollywood Hills. We've got to pump that. And if you drive up and down Highway 5, you see the water project as you go. So anytime you save water, you're also saving energy. And your own energy too, not just the state. The other thing I like to tell people is a way to know how much water you're using in your landscape. You could put a separate meter on your landscape irrigation. That's the easiest way. A lot of people don't do that. But you can just look at your water bills over the year, and it's very easy to see what is used for the landscape versus what is used inside. Most years I tell people that in December you can turn off your irrigation system completely. This year was very strange. We didn't get any water, any significant rainfall until like March. But typically around December 1st, you turn off your irrigation system. Then any of your water bill during the winter months, that's all from inside the house, right? You're not watering anything outside, it's all from inside. And you will have a graph something like this. In December through March, you're not using a lot of water. And then come July and August, those are our really high use months. You'll see your water bill go up. So let me get over there. So, and this is my house, and this is years and years worth of data. I really need to update it. So you can see that this is every 2 months. I use about 15,000 gallons inside the house, and then this is how much I use outside the house. Is that clear? So just by looking at your water bill, you should be able to figure out how much water you're using, inside and out. And it's really good to measure. You want to know, after you change your lawn over, how much water you're saving, right? I mean, it's really good to measure, because once you start measuring, then you'll start tweaking the system a little bit more and working it down. Now, one other fact that I want you to know is the conversion from your water bill, which is usually in CCF. Anybody heard that term, CCF, on their water bill? Yes, no, no. So you pay for water in units, and the units are CCF. The first C stands for, it's like the Roman numeral for 100. Remember way back in elementary school, C was 100 in Roman numerals. And then CF is cubic feet. So for every CCF, that's about 750 gallons. So write that down and go home and look at your water bill and see how many gallons, because we don't think in terms of CCF, right? We know gallons. That's what we can kind of relate to. So do that conversion. Does that make sense? Okay. About 750. It's 748 if you want to be exact. 748 gallons to 100 cubic feet. Okay? And to make that even just a little bit easier, if you think about a cubic foot, right? A cubic foot is 3 feet by 3 feet by 3 feet.
No, that's cubic yard.
Sorry, you're right. Cubic foot, 1 foot by 1 foot by 1. Thank you. I think in terms of cubic yards a lot. If you're in the landscape industry, you do. So excuse me, 1 by 1 by 1, that's 7.48 gallons. Okay? 1 cubic foot is 7.48 gallons. Okay? Okay. Another really interesting study is hand watering versus an irrigation system. We all think that we need an irrigation system, and it does make our life a lot easier. For the Lawn Be Gone program, you don't really have to have an irrigation system. They don't require that at all. It does make life easier, but we do know from studies that when people hand water, they tend to use less water than if they have an automatic irrigation system. And also I want you to take away from this is that spray irrigation tends to be fairly wasteful, right? We know this. A lot of overspray, not a lot of times spray irrigation systems aren't designed properly, so you'll have that one brown spot in the middle of your lawn, right? And then what do? You water more, or there you go. Somebody said hand water. That's great. Most people just up the water requirement. So they're over-watering the rest of their lawn in order to get that one brown spot out of there. We also get a lot of runoff where the water will just run right off of our area and go out into the gutter. So spray irrigation, we're getting away from that. And a lot of, when I started back in '97, there was a lot of bad feelings about drip irrigation. Drip irrigation doesn't work. And there were some things that we needed to learn about how to use drip irrigation, and also the technology has changed immensely. So we have a lot better technology with drip irrigation than we used to. I almost never use spray irrigation anymore. It's all drip irrigation, even for lawns, there are ways to do it, but.
Sure. What are you comparing these percentages to what?
Yes, there's a study from the American Water Works Association. It's nationwide, their study was. So they figured out an average, and then they broke people out into those that had just did hand watering versus those that are spray. I don't have all the data, but you can look it up. American Water Works, it's very easy to find.
Yeah, like drip irrigation, it says you're using like 16%
more than average. You still use a little bit more than if you're just hand watering, or if you're or the average that's out there. You're still using a little bit more.
It's relative.
It is all relative, but it's a good question. The other idea that I really want you to take away from this is the idea of hydrozoning. And all that means is that the plants that have similar water requirements should be placed together, right? Hopefully you don't have any redwood tree, but you might, but having a redwood tree next to, say, an agave or a succulent isn't the right, because redwood takes a lot of water, or a European birch takes a lot of water, and that succulent is typically a low water use plant. So we want to group our plants so that everybody's happy together, and we don't have to water one thing more than something else. It just makes it much easier, whether you're hand watering, but especially if you're irrigating with drip, it's essential to do that. Okay, so hydrozoning. Now you may wonder, how do I know what my water requirements of the plants that I have? One of the first things that you may do is, so you have lawn, that's high water. We know that right away. So you're going to pull out your lawn, but maybe you have a tree in the middle of your lawn, right? Well, if it's a European birch, it's still high water, and you'll have to do some work on that. But there's a lot of trees that are low water. So there's a document online called WCALS. We call it WCALS, or the Water Use Classification of Landscape Species. WCALS is much easier than that. You have a handout that talks about very low water plants and low water plants. On the second page, in little tiny type, there's a URL for getting this document. It's very, very easy. You can type in, it's not on that one, it's not on a color one, it's a 2-page, low water use. Everybody find it? So at the very bottom, there's some really useful URLs there. So that's very easy. Say you have an azalea. You can type in azalea, and it'll tell you whether it's very low, low, medium, or high. 4 categories: very low, low, medium, or high water. Very, very easy to find that. Okay? And the other thing, and you probably can't see it, but it has regions. Which because this is for all of California. So it says which region. We're region 1. So just look at the first column. We're region 1. Okay, so Frank talked a little bit about the Lawn Be Gone program. $500 maximum rebate, which is wonderful. And I tell you, when I started this 15 years ago doing design, there were no rebates. This is a wonderful program. We have one in the South Bay also through our water district, our Santa Clara County Water District. It's so great to give people just a little bit of an incentive, as if the water bill wasn't enough, just a little bit more of an incentive to do the right thing, really. So 500 max rebate, 200 square feet minimum. 50% of the area has to be covered with plants. And you have a list of plants. I focus a lot on California native plants, so I've given you a list of plants that are on that Lawn Be Gone program. But as Frank said, you know, if it's low water or very low water, if you show them that it's in WUCALs or something else, they will try to accommodate that. Did you have a question?
Yeah. This program is only applied for front yard.
Front yards or visible yards is what he said. If you can see it from the street. And the great thing about that is we need to change the aesthetic of what we think is beautiful in California. Our aesthetic has been, you know, lawns and roses, and I don't have anything against roses or boxwood hedges or birches or anything. But we have to stop and think, where do those plants come from? You know, it's in rainier parts of the world. We have a very special, very unique area. It's a Mediterranean climate, only one of 5 Mediterranean climates in the whole world. We need to embrace what makes California unique, and part of that is California native plants. I know I'm standing in front of some people. I apologize. Okay, at least 3 inches of mulch. We're gonna do a lot with mulch today, but 3 inches of mulch. It really is good for the soil. It really helps. It breaks down and it really enriches the soil, but it's also keeping the water in the soil, which we really want, and keeping the weeds down, right? So it's really good. Pervious paving has to be less than 50% and no artificial turf. Yay. I'm not going to go through that. There's a pre-application submittal. You don't just start taking your lawn out. You need to be pre-approved. You need to have somebody like Frank come out and take a look at your yard and be pre-approved and go through all of the appropriate paperwork. There's some great resources. There's a brand new book called Reimagining the California Lawn. It's not all California native plants, but it's excellent just to give you some different ideas on what you can do with your lawn. There's also a garden tour called the Going Native Garden Tour. It just happened in April. Only happens once a year, darn it all. But there were 55 gardens on that tour that were at least 50% native plants. It's a wonderful program. It's completely free. Again, it's put on by the California Native Plant Society. It's a wonderful way to go out and see what people are doing and get some different ideas for front yards and for backyards. There's also the Wild Lawn Handbook. That's more kind of North America. But the Reimagining the California Lawn is specific to California. So there's lots and lots of alternatives to some kind of a lawn, and you don't even want to have one of these anymore. Okay, So we already talked about the study and how it's a lot lower maintenance. I also did want to talk just a little bit about soil, because that's another major idea. I've been an organic gardener my whole life, and when I started out, all I learned was, you need to know the pH of your soil and how much nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium you have in it, right? That's all you need to know. You just add more nitrogen. Not true. What we have found is, and this was totally a revelation for me, what we have found is there's all these millions, billions of microorganisms in the soil that work with your plants, with their roots. There's this entire symbiotic relationship. The plant roots feed these fungi that are in the soil. The fungi reach out and they mine minerals for the plant, and the plant gives them a little sugar drink, as the swap in this. So the more organisms you have in the soil, the healthier your plants will be. And I show this picture. Hopefully you've seen soil like this. I know it's hard with the color, but you see soil, it's light in color. It's cracking, right? No weeds are growing. It puddles in the winter. That was the soil that I saw at this garden in San Jose. It was what we call an infill project, where they had taken out a larger property and put in lots of duplexes, townhouses, things like that. Well, when they do that, they usually scrape off the top 6 inches of topsoil. And we know that really plant life depends on that top 6 inches of topsoil. That's where a lot of the microorganisms are. That's where all the humus and compost is. We need that. So they had scraped it off, and they don't usually bring it back. It's just gone forever. So we really needed to really work on this soil to make it better. We lose a lot of topsoil. Hopefully you know that that's a problem. It just blows away if it's not protected and covered by plants. That's what plants do. They help protect that topsoil and keep it in place. And just by mulching, doing simple things like mulching, you can really help your topsoil. And we're going to talk about that when we get out into the garden. So when you see something like this, where the soil is rich and dark brown, and you don't have to use a pickaxe, you can, pretty much just really use your hands in it, then you have really good soil. Now, we're not all going to get to that point, but we can do a lot to make it a lot better. This is what that garden looked like after. This was about 5 years ago. Lots and lots of plant life, a little tiny armeria lawn, but everything is just really thriving there now. And a wonderful reference is Teeming with Microbes. This is a lay person's guide to the soil food web. That's what it's called, the soil food web. So for 18 years, that I've lived in this current house, I've never used any kind of chemical fertilizer. It's just all mulch and compost, and my soil just continues to get better and better. And I do want to talk a little bit about some strategies on how to take out lawn and also how to prevent weeds. How many people have Bermuda grass? Does anybody have Bermuda grass? A couple people. Okay. You may not know. You'll see little runners. If you don't edge it, you'll see little runners that go out onto the sidewalk. That's Bermuda grass. That is one of the toughest things to get rid of. It really is. And what you'll hear is the only way to do it is to use Roundup. Okay? Now, or some kind of herbicide. There are other ways of doing it. It takes a little bit more work, it does. But what happens when you're using some kind of an herbicide, think about all those microorganisms. They have no protection from any of these herbicides or pesticides. Think about, earthworms, right? Water, air, everything goes in and out through their skin. They're very, very vulnerable to any kind of pesticide like that. So you really want to be very judicious in using any kind of herbicide or pesticide. So there was Bermuda grass out in front of the fire station. The city of San Bruno worked really hard to get rid of it. They got rid of almost all of it. I just went out there this morning, and I do see a little bit more, so we're going to work on that. But the way to remove Bermuda grass is you want to do 2 passes of a sod cutter, and that's what that picture is. Yes, you have to rent a machine to get rid of it, but you do 2 passes of a sod cutter, because the thing about Bermuda grass is it's got these roots that if a little piece of it stays, that plant will come back, okay? So you're trying to get rid of as much of the roots as possible. Now, when you use a sod cutter, you are getting rid of some of the topsoil, maybe 3 inches instead of 6 inches. So it's all a trade-off here. But I feel much better about using a mechanical, even though it's gas-powered machine, rather than getting chemicals into maybe our groundwater or going out to our bay. Or that's to me. You need to make your own decision. But if you do want to try and get rid of Bermuda grass, 2 passes of a sod cutter, and then you're going to start raking. Not with a leaf rake, but with one of those steel-tined rakes, because you're trying to snag those roots and get those roots out. The places where you have to really work hard is along the edge of any kind of concrete. And you'll see at the fire station that there is a few pieces out at the edge of concrete. They just are really able to get their roots in and around the base of the concrete. So that's where you really have to work hard. The good news is if any stays around the edge, it's a little bit easier to weed it, or if you have to, use just a little bit of herbicide on just those little pieces. It's still much better than spraying the whole area. So I'm going to say one more time, 2 passes of the sod cutter, rake, rake, rake. Try to get all those roots. If you have time, water, and you want to water when it's warm, because Bermuda grass is a warm season grass. It only grows when it's warm out. You do this in the wintertime, you'll think you got it all because nothing shows green. It's dormant. You missed it. So you want to do it now. Now is a really good time to do it. Water. See if you see anything green coming up. Get out there and try to get rid of all those roots. Wait another couple of weeks. If you have the time, water again. Again, see if you see any roots and try to get rid of them, okay? So that's going to help a lot to get rid of, and if you can avoid tilling with a rototiller, it's really going to be better off. Because if you miss anything and then you till it, you're chopping it up and spreading it, okay?
Sure.
Yes.
What, could you explain, I thought somebody was suggesting sheet mulching to kill the grass. And
Yes. I am going to talk about that next.
Oh, you are?
Thank you. Thank you. He's not a plant. I didn't put him into the audience to ask that.
Removing it with the sod.
Bermuda grass.
Just the Bermuda grass.
Just the Bermuda grass.
That's the wrong impression.
Yeah, just the Bermuda grass. That's the only one that you really need to take away. And by the way, if you get rid of this, do not put it in your compost pile. Do not. Give it to the city, give it to the professionals to hot compost. Do not. Now, some people will say if you really let it dry out, really desiccate it, that, you know, like I said, if you want to try that, great. But I don't recommend people trying to compost that. Okay, sheet mulching. We're going to talk a little bit about sheet mulching. Any other type of lawn you can get rid of. The only other thing that's difficult is oxalis, right? Those yellow flowers that come up in the springtime. Those are hard also. Again, no rototilling with oxalis. You'll just spread those little bulblets. What we're trying to do is we're trying to starve the plant, right? We're trying to get rid of all the nutrients, anything that they have, any kind of reservoir, any kind of reserves that they have in their root system. Okay, so what sheet mulching does is it blocks the sun, because we know plants get their food from the sun through photosynthesis. So sheet mulching, there's lots and lots of ways to do it, and I'll show you just a couple. So you can just use newspaper. Now in this case, they are showing, they have taken out the lawn. But you can even do it with lawn in place. There is a videotape that's very, very good. I'll give you, I don't have the URL, but if you Google bay-friendly sheet mulching, they have a wonderful videotape on exactly how to do it with lawn in place. Bay-friendly sheet mulching. Google that and you'll find this video. And I just don't, we just don't have time. I wish we did to go through that. But the idea with sheet mulching is very simple. Remember that landscape fabric? Remember that black plastic that we're still picking out of our garden areas, right? Because it never goes away. So this is the same kind of idea. What we're trying to do is we're trying to stop the weeds from germinating and from getting to the sunlight. And we do it with a layer of paper, really. We don't do plastic, or I don't recommend doing plastic anymore. All you need to do is block the weeds from the sunlight for a couple of years until your little itty-bitty baby plants get big. Well, the way to do it is with newspaper. You do 4 to 6 layers of newspaper. That gives you enough of a barrier. You can do a little bit more, don't go crazy. You could do 8, but 4 to 6 layers of newspaper. Overlap the edges at least 6 inches. Because the plants know, if they know that there's sunlight, they can sense it, and they'll come up through any kind of crack. So make sure you overlap it. Now, you can't really tell. Up at the top, it's dry. Newspaper blows away. So it's hard to like lay it all down, especially if you're doing it by yourself. Get some friends, ask some neighbors to come over, show them how to sheet mulch also. But once you lay the newspaper down, you can just kind of sprinkle it a little bit and that'll keep it in place. It also softens it, so if you want to work around some plants and things, that it's much easier to do that. So 4 to 6 layers of newspaper, overlap the edges, be real careful along the edges of concrete as well. And you can see in this case they planted everything and then they're just putting the newspaper around it, and then come back with 3 inches of mulch because you want to meet the requirements of Lawn Be Gone, and it's also going to just keep the newspaper in place, and it looks so much better than seeing newspaper. Yes?
Do you ever provide for gopher infestation?
Yeah, if you have gophers, you're going to need to be using gopher baskets. It is a problem because they, what kind of lawn do you have? Regular, like fescue. Regular fescue, probably, yeah. It's not so much of a problem with just fescue, because if they come up, as long as the plants are protected, it's okay. If you have Bermuda grass and you didn't get it all, I think the gophers kind of spread it, right? They're digging around and stuff. We do have, down in San Jose at Guadalupe Gardens, it's a long ways away for you guys, but we did just sheet mulch a whole area. They do have a ton of gophers there, and they did have Bermuda grass. So it's kind of an experiment. I am seeing a lot of gopher activities. The plants look good. They're all in their gopher baskets. You guys are familiar with that, these wire cages? It's like, you can get them at the store. They're kind of expensive, but you know, yeah, you can make your own from chicken wire. You can also get rid of gophers. There is a trapping method. There's a guy, it's called, his website is Gophers Limited, not Unlimited, Gophers Limited. Thomas Whitman, he's been trapping gophers. Well, I won't say trapping, that's not what he does. He's been killing gophers humanely, but he's been killing them for over 25 years.
He does golf courses.
He does golf courses. He does huge areas. He's really, I had, yeah, he knows. He'll set a trap, walk to set the next one, and he can hear the trap go off because he knows when to do it in the morning. He does classes too. Look for his classes. He does the pocket gopher traps. What's the name of the trap? I forget.
I don't know. I can't even set them. I ordered them, and the springs are so tight on them. Cinch traps.
Yeah, there's actually the manufacturer, but cinch traps. Yeah, he's very, very good. I had one client, we put the gopher wire under her vegetable bed. We didn't use a thick enough gauge wire. I had it specified, and the contractor didn't think it made a difference, and they went right through it. And this was a really smart gopher, too. It took Thomas 3 times to get this guy, but he got him, and we haven't had a problem. It's been 2 years now. And they live right near a creek, too. But we did some barrier, some wire barrier along the fence, so there's lots of different things. But Thomas Whitman, Gophers Limited. He doesn't use poisons or chemicals. It's that cinch trap, it's, you know, it does kill them. Yeah.
What's your recommendation of the gauge again?
What was that?
The recommendation of the gauge of wire.
You know, I don't remember. I'd have to look it up. But I'll look it up if you, yes.
Well, for gophers, I've been using these sonic things that emit this.
Most people say they
beep.
don't work, but
For me, they've driven them away, and then didn't have to use chemicals. And
Perfect.
Send them to your neighbors.
well, the one that
Okay. Yes, some people like them, some people don't. So, you know, unfortunately, rodents are very, very smart. They're very, very smart. And you just have to use all the tricks of the trade and get a little bit smarter. Okay, we've got one more question, and then
How do you spell the last name of
I think it's Wittman. But Gophers Limited. You'll definitely find it, Google. Okay. Another method is, so instead of newspaper, 4 to 6 sheets at least, you can use, sometimes you can get rolls of, it's like a thin cardboard, and that's what you're seeing here. This is at the Sunnyvale Smart Station where we did some sheet mulching. So, and I do have a bunch of rolls. It's not cardboard. we're going to be using builder's paper. If you go to the paint department at any hardware store, they'll have like 3-foot wide rolls of brown paper. So I have rolls of that we're going to be using. The only thing I don't like about the builder's paper is I have not found recycled content paper. So that's my next goal, is to find that. But you can also do, like I said, these rolls of builder's paper. It's in the paint department of hardware stores. Or you can order rolls of cardboard, but you have to go to a paper supply. It's a little bit more complicated. The other thing you can do is just cardboard boxes. I have a client, they just use cardboard boxes, which is fine if you can find them or you have them. Just make sure that where the flaps are and you have openings, you definitely have to make sure there's no openings whatsoever. That videotape that I told you about Bay-Friendly sheet mulching, the videotape on YouTube, she does use cardboard. So that is a good other method. Okay, we're almost done because we got to get out into the garden. I did want to show you a picture of pervious concrete. And this is a driveway made with pervious concrete, just so that you have an idea of kind of what it looks like. You probably can't tell. You can see it's just got kind of a rough texture. It looks kind of like Rice Krispie treats. It's kind of what we... Yeah, yeah. It's kind of a specialized application, so you have to make sure that you have the right person put it in.
Is that a driveway?
That is a driveway.
So that's loose?
No.
Is it applied as a ready mix, or is it put down dry and then water?
It is applied as a ready mix. And it's very popular in Florida for probably 15, 20 years. It's just getting more popular in the Bay Area, I would say in the last 10 years. Okay, that's the rest of their garden. We don't have time to go through these. Some native plants, another front yard, just to give you some different ideas about what you could do. Another front yard, little seating area out front. This was a lawn with a tree, I think it was an ash, did a lot of iris. And on their driveway, they had a portion that was cracked at the bottom of the driveway. And again, I'm sorry about the picture, but you can see, maybe you can see that these are pervious pavers. And you can see that there's little spacers. On this particular one, there's little spacers, and they fill the spacers in with gravel or something pervious. A very tiny gravel or DG would also work, or sand would also work as well. And like I said, there's some now that the water just goes right through the paver.
What if weeds come up?
Okay, so yes, The thing about sheet mulching or mulch or that landscape fabric or anything, it's great at keeping the weeds that are in the ground and trying to go up. It's great at doing that. But what about the weeds that fall, right? From birds, bird dropping, or are just blown in there? That's really what you're finding there. For something like this, or brick set in sand or whatever, there is a little, you can certainly do it by hand. There's a little flamer that is really good. I know I hate to even say that because we're getting into the dry season. You don't do that on a dry, windy day. I mean, on a driveway, it's going to be okay, right? A Peaceful Valley Farm Supply, but you can find them other places. They're just these little, I do have a picture, but I'm not showing it in this slideshow. It's a little flamer. It uses a propane. You can use a little tiny propane. Kind of, but this is a little bit more, it's got a wand, yeah, instead of the creme brulee, it's got a wand like about that long and a long hose. You can use the little propane tanks. Yeah, you can do it by hand, but you can use a little flamer. The only time I would really say to use that is in that situation where you're trying to get weeds out of cracks or bricks or whatever. Okay, how are we doing? All right, 2 more questions.
Is bleach, something that you would use on, it's a natural product. You just spray the weeds in.
Because those little worms are going to go, ah! No, yeah, so bleach, people do vinegar. Again, vinegar, there's vinegar that's, it's more than just your household vinegar. It's a very high percentage. It's very acidic. You have to be very careful when using it. So some people use things like that as well. You're going to have to, boiling water works well also. If you're doing just a little bit, it gets really old going back and forth, But I have done it, and it absolutely does work. If you just, boiling water. You're just trying to desiccate the plant. And the same thing with the flamer. It's not burning it, it's boiling it. It's boiling the water. It's desiccating it, really, is what it's doing. And there's bigger flamers, but no, you don't want to do that. Yeah, boiling water does work a little bit for little areas. Okay. Yes?
Mulch as opposed to stone or rocks.
Mulch?
The mulch has to be replaced like every few years. Is that true?
Yes. I mean, it's a good thing, right? Mulch is breaking down and adding to the quality of your soil. But yes, I would say you're going to try to keep 3 inches, 2 at a minimum, inches of mulch. It will break down over time. So you will have to come back and put half an inch, an inch. Before the garden show, or the garden tour, sometimes I'll go and put a nice, it looks so pretty. But yeah, I do go ahead and put a little bit more mulch. You don't have to do it every year, but probably every couple of years, a little bit. And you'll be surprised at how much mulch we're going to use in the garden. 3 inches of mulch, it's a lot. It's a lot of mulch. You'll really be surprised. So this is a journey that we're taking, both to lower our water, but also to create a habitat. I mean, all these things work together. We're going to lower our water, lower our maintenance, increase habitat for all kinds of creatures, and I just wanted to give you just kind of my journey, my 18-year-old journey. So this is my ranch-style house. This is before digital photography, 1994. There's a dead holly oak in the front yard when we moved in. I found out later that, from one of my neighbors, that the previous owners, they didn't know. They didn't want the lawn to grow up right next to the tree, so what did they do? Sprayed it. They sprayed it with Roundup. And it killed the trees, yeah. So I had two trees in the yard. That one was dead. The other one blew down the first winter, and the other one was kind of on the edge of my neighbor's house, and it had been topped, and eventually it just became a hazard, so I took them all out. So the first year, or the first couple of years, I did reduce the lawn quite a bit. So what you see here is lawn, dead oak trees, boxwood hedge, some ivy, and a birch tree. And the birch was about 50 years old. That's really about about all they last. It did come down after a couple of years. You can see it's not there in that picture. So I did put lawn in the front, re-put lawn in the front because my kids were very young, and it's the sunniest part of the yard. So we got rid of the lawn in the back, put it in the front. If you like lawn, I encourage you to put it in one place or the other. Put it in the sunny area of your yard, okay? So this was, even though this is a morning shot, this was the sunny part of my yard. Every year I'd ask my kids, can I take out the lawn now? No, we love it. And eventually they were teenagers and I didn't even ask, I just went ahead. So, because I got tired of the maintenance, it's just too much.
So when you reduced your lawn, were those native plants that you put in, like in those?
There are some. This was, yes, there are some. There's yarrow, there's some ceanothus, there's manzanitas, there's 3 coast live oaks. I think I can, there's 3 coast live oaks there now. That was beginning of my journey too with native plants. Now it's, well, you'll see. This is not a destination, it is a journey. And we're all starting and moving to do the best job that we can. So this is in the middle of the process. We did take out the lawn. You can see the irrigation going in. You can see them sheet mulching and the little tiny plants. There's some sages and coyote bush there, a little up close on that. And then now it's all filled in. That's Cleveland sage with a little bird bath. I have a lovely little bush tit nest right outside my front door on the porch. They eat insects doing all of this. I'm so sorry. I'm not supposed to do that. And you see that, you know, as you start to do this, the creatures really know that they're native plants. They're really attracted to that. You're not spraying and using a lot of chemicals, so you're getting a lot more insects. I've really learned how many birds, I always thought birds, it's seeds. No, it's insects. They're eating a lot of, which is good for you as a gardener, too. They're eating, you know, the good and the bad insects, but they're eating a lot of insects, so you get so much more wildlife. And it adds what I call kind of a 4th dimension of seeing these creatures really in your garden, bathing and eating, and you really kind of get to know them. So it's a really fun journey to go on. And that is my kind of lawn alternative that I'm using as well. So that's it. Now, I'm pretty sure that's it. Oh, some more penstemon. I do have a couple of references. The book on your left is one of my favorite California native plants for the garden. Very good. If you could only have one, that would be a very good book to get. California Native Plants for the Garden. It focuses a lot on Southern California plants. It's both. It really is both. There's also a maintenance book on your right, and you really can't read that. It's called Care, I should put this on the list. I'll do this in the future, put it on the list. Care and Maintenance of, it says, Care and Maintenance of Southern California Plants, but it's very, very good for our northern plants as well. So it really helps you with the maintenance. There's also a new book on month-by-month maintenance of California native plants. Brandy new, just has been out just a couple of months. I'm sorry I don't have it on here, but it's by Helen Popper, Popper. It's a month-by-month guide for native plants. I think that's it.
How do you find Sunset Western Garden?
Oh, very good information. They don't have all the native plants that I use, though. But it's an excellent resource, and their information is very, very good. And it has always been very good. Very good. Native nurseries, most of these are more down by my area. Yerba Buena's in Woodside. It's a little bit of a trek. It's off of Skyline between Page Mill and Woodside Road. I know that the plants that they got for the garden that we're going to do came from Golden Nursery. That's not far. So a lot of nurseries, if you know what to ask for, they can order them for you. Yes?
Are the native grass seeds readily available?
Not really. There is, you'll see on here Larner seeds. Larner seeds. They specialize in California native plants. They do have quite a few. Do you want to do a meadow or something?
Well, yeah, I've got a slope out back I'd like to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Larner has, they have mixes that you can use, and they also sell, you know, Festuca occidentalis or whatever. So yeah, but Larner seeds would be the way to go. They're in Bolinas, but they're very good.
That's on the list. Where? I don't. Oh yeah, we have it in red.
Oh, so she has pictures of everything that
Yes.
we're planting?
Yes, that one is this one. That one is the same one. This one. That's the book. Oh, this one is the manzanita. Emerald copper. Is that flower? No, it's just a bush.
You can see a little bit of green coming up in some areas. I see some over there. There's especially some around the pole. There's a little pole and there's a little placard. We really need to try and get as much of that as possible out. You see that? That's a root. Now that looks pretty dry.
Now
This looks pretty dry. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about anything that's looking.
is that Bermuda? That's what
You betcha. That right there, Bermuda, Bermuda, yes. You see these long roots? These are pretty dry. That one I don't trust. So we're gonna just throw those out onto the sidewalk. Yep, we'll sweep up afterwards. All of this is Bermuda. That we need to really try to get rid of as much of that as possible. All right, I'm gonna go grab some plants and, oh, the weeding's done? Excellent, okay. That guy, put that there. Just put,
This one goes here.
yes, just roughly. Just get that roughly down, up another row above it. See where the blue ones are. Yes, yes. Who has more of these guys? These guys? Blue flag, okay. Yeah, do the blue flags. The pensamon, the blue flags.
On your plot.
We're just gonna get them generally in the right area. Sorry, those are mimulus. Buckwheat's front row. All right, so in this area, we're gonna be planting and then we're gonna sheet mulch. In that area, we're gonna actually sheet mulch first. But I wanted to get the plants sort of set. Native plants are sensitive to having too much water right at the base of the plant. So I wanna make sure that it gets close enough, but not too close. Just roll it. And you're gonna help him by kind of, yeah, holding it down. I hope they got a hose. Yeah, you gotta keep it off the concrete if you can. There's a lady over there. Whenever you need water, you just wave your hand to her.
Okay, I cut the old paper. I did too much. It's okay.
No, that's great. We're gonna do 2 layers.
Wheelbarrow.
Not yet. Ooh.
Look, he
I
did
know,
that.
that's
You
okay.
hold it there.
Okay, okay, stop. Okay, so, okay, one important thing, I'm sorry, I didn't explain this before. With native plants, they don't like to have a wet crown. It's because of our Mediterranean climate. They are used to growing when it's cold and wet. When it's warm and wet, there's fungi and stuff that will attack the plant. So there's a couple of strategies that we use to try to keep the crown of the plant dry. One of the strategies is we plant them a little bit high above the soil, no more than an inch, okay? So, so if this one, that's okay, that's okay. That's okay, it doesn't matter, I just want to show. So you can see that that's just a little, yeah. So we're gonna, that's right.
Don't want to put compost down in there. That's very lean, bad soil down there. No?
And none of these, they don't really like a lot of rich soil, believe it or not.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're just gonna put this in a little bit. I'd say still a little bit more. You want to be twice as wide as the container, but no deeper. Maybe even a little bit. You don't want it too shallow because you don't want the roots exposed. It'll dry out too fast.
Okay.
But you don't want it down below because then it might get a crown rot. But I would say that that's about right. You could go maybe a little bit wider, but you don't need to. Okay? Now, this is just head lawn, right? I don't see any earthworms. I don't see any creatures. You saw one. All right, that's good. So a lot of times I like to put a little bit of compost in. Natives don't need a really rich soil unless you're talking about the redwood forest. Then the soil is rich. These are not redwood forest plants. So we're just going to add a 1/4 gallon. Those cans are 1 gallon. 1/4 can of compost. Just kind of put it in there. I just think of it as kind of inoculating the soil, getting some good stuff into the soil. You don't really have to do it, but I like to do it. So we're going to be adding a little bit of compost, and the compost is bags right there. And there's 2 of them because these plants are used to clay, but we want to make sure they have fairly good drainage.
Yeah.
So we want to plant them high. The other thing that, if you noticed, I was walking around, moving some of the lines apart. We don't want the emitters right next to the crown of the plant, because then again, we're watering and we could get some kind of a crown rot. So we try to space the emitters a little bit more.
Is that a little
Yeah.
high, or is that okay right there?
That looks great. That looks great.
What about the emitters?
We don't care about the emitters. We really don't. Once we know it's working, we don't really care about them, because clay soil, you think it just goes down. It doesn't. It spreads out. It really pulls the water. It'll even pull it up. So we don't have to worry about it. Plus, we're going to be really hand watering these in. It's already been watered. You can tell that the soil is pretty moist. We're going to water again after we plant, and then it's going to be watering 3 or 4 times a week for the first 2 weeks. So we'll be okay. All right, you guys handle this and I'll move on. We want 2 layers. How are we doing on the paper?
We've got 2 more. This is about 2.5.
I think we're going to use 1 whole one for this side, wouldn't you say? Just to do 1 layer?
Oh yeah.
Okay, keep going with that, and then we're going to come back and do another layer.
That was easier than the flat circle. Has a point.
Still moving stuff. Good job, water lady. You have the wettest job. I'm sorry about that.
So before you add the compost, you have to...
Okay, we ready to sheet mulch?
Yes.
All right,
Newspaper over here.
newspaper over here.
And
So for this side, we're going to show using newspaper instead of the brown paper. And obviously we've planted first, and then we're going to sheet mulch, okay? The tricky part about newspaper is they're smaller, and we really have to make sure we overlap 6 inches. 4 to 6 layers of newspaper is very, very, very important, okay? So start at the straight edges. Start the straight edges, it's always easier. If you're gonna go around something round like this, you can kind of wet it and kind of move it around it. Try to stay away from the crown of the plant. Try to stay at least 3 inches from the crown of the plant with the newspaper, okay? It's very helpful to have one person open up and hand the newspaper to somebody. It takes a lot of time to open it up. It probably takes 2 people to open it up and put it down. Nice and tight against the edge, exactly. Water lady.
well, let's wait until we have the water. We want something to hold it down. We'll be standing here.
Now,
holding newspaper.
the water is really good. You can also use a little bit of mulch to keep it down. You can use a little bit of compost to keep it down. They'll be here in just a second. And we still have plenty of time. You guys are actually almost done. You're gonna finish way before the other side, so don't worry. try to be straight on the edges, so these edges, they'll show. And we want to try and make it look really pretty, and we don't want to have, so try to get the edges even. There you go. That's why you start, do the edge first and then fill in. Okay. You guys good? All right. We're going to kind of turn this into a 4-inch pot, kind of, in a way. We're going to kind of open up the roots and kind of spread them a little bit, and then we're going to put the mulch around. It's also not bad. We have compost left. It's not a bad idea to put a little compost at the base of the plant and then come back and mulch. You guys are now the experts. Do you see how I did that? One more time?
Like a little mound of
Kind of a little mound. And you know, the other thing that's good about this method is that it keeps the plants high. They're a little bit higher. You'll probably use a little bit more mulch around them, but it works really well. And they're strong enough that they'll put their roots through. Okay, so one more time. There's no gophers here. There better not be. So there's so many different ways to sheet mulch. I'm trying to get you to do a couple different ways. So even though putting the paper down is easier, it's a little bit trickier to plant these, a little bit. I'm just worried about it coming up, so as much as we can, we want to keep the integrity of the paper so that it doesn't have a way to get up through it. So if you have lawn and it's not Bermuda grass, the newspaper, any method will work. But this, I'm just worried about the Bermuda grass coming up through any kind of a hole.
Close to the plants, around it, over it, through it.
Keep the mulch, try to keep it like 3 inches away, but you have to cover the roots. We don't want the roots to dry out.
That doesn't quite work this method, Jim.
It's a little different, isn't it? Excellent. One more? Do you want to do this one? Or shall I?
Oh, this one?
Yeah. Okay. The emitters, they're not like spray heads.
Well, I thought you just wanted to be able to see them to make sure they were.
Well, that again is one of the issues with this method. You can put the emitters on top of the paper. That's another way to do it.
But then you're running everything on top of the paper. Right?
Yep. Okay, looking good.
So what brand is it the one you like?
You can use anything. I like Netafim. It's an Israeli company, and the product's called Techline. They kind of invented drip irrigation, but Rainbird has it. Toro has a product.
So you can find those anywhere.
You can find those anywhere. And well, actually, the best equipment you're going to get is from an irrigation supply company, like Ewing, Horizon. There's other ones. People will know. If we talk about it, people will know. I haven't had problems with any of these plants. There are some that they'll only last like, say, 5 years or something, but I don't typically.
From the landscaper.
Yeah, that's
not true. Okay.
No, I mean, think about an oak tree, a manzanita that you see in the wild. They've been there for decades.
Okay.
Yeah, decades and decades. You know, maybe some of the perennials aren't going to last as long, but still, they're going to last a long time. Okay, so we did 2 different methods, and I've heard people say one is easier than the other. What are your thoughts about the different methods of sheet mulching? He likes not digging holes.
I like that better. I think because I have lawn still that I just want to cover, I think this is the way to go.
She says this is easier because she still has lawn, okay? What else? Anything harder about this area? The planting was a different technique, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very different technique. This is more of a traditional method. The newspaper is definitely made from recycled paper, and you're recycling it. The paper that I had did not have any recycled content. I would try to find some in the future that did. Certainly laying that out, much easier, right? The big rolls than the newspaper, but you have newspaper too. So each one of those rolls was about $11. And it went fast. It went faster than I thought it did. Yeah.
How many rows did you use?
How many?
Rows.
How many layers?
No, how many of those paper?
3 rolls.
3 rows.
3 rolls, I'm sorry. Yeah, 3 rolls of the paper. Okay. So this method, definitely a little bit trickier. I think everybody understands this method, planting in a hole, doing all of that. On this method, you have to be very careful not to expose the roots. They're not in the ground, right? So unless you're really putting mulch around them, the roots can be exposed and the plant can dry out and die right away. Now, we have the same plants pretty much on both sides. So I encourage you to kind of come by here and see what the survival rate is, how they look, you know, the 2 different sides. But at least you have the experience of doing both. The reason I really wanted to not to dig holes on this side was because I saw a lot more Bermuda grass on this side. And any place that there's a chance for it to come up, it will. So that's why I didn't want to dig a hole. That was the main reason. Plus, to give you a little bit of an idea of how to do it, different ways. The other reason I like this is that the plants are up higher. So you're going to get a little bit better drainage. It's very easy to plant too deeply. Very, very easy. So 6 of one, half dozen another. There's lots of different ways to sheet mulch. You can even put a lot of people were saying, well, how are you going to add more emitters? Or how are you going to see if there's a problem with the drip system? You can put the paper down first and then put the drip down also. You can put the drip line on top of it. Because the class was last week, we couldn't really do that. I couldn't come last week. So we did it this way. So there's a lot of different ways of doing it. The other thing I wanted to talk about was mulch. I ordered about 7 cubic yards. They brought about 7 cubic yards of mulch. We only have about 750 square feet. You use a lot of mulch, a lot of mulch. Now there's some, and this is a nice mini fir bark. It's beautiful, just beautiful. It's one of my favorites. But you can also use something called arbor chips. Does anybody know what arbor chips are? Arbor chips? It's when your tree company comes and does some trimming and you have them leave the tree trimmings. Actually, my arborist came on Friday and I have I probably have 3 cubic yards of mulch left over, yeah, from trimming. So that is a great way. If you're not having trees trimmed, you might find a neighbor who is. You might ask them to dump it. The only thing I just be careful of is what's in there. You want to make sure you're not bringing in any organisms like sudden oak disease or something like that. So if it's in your neighborhood, it's probably okay. I always ask my guy to come with an empty truck. Come with your truck empty. Do you have street side pickup for green waste? Yeah. Yes. So I have him come the day after the street side pickup. I have him dump it in the street. I used to have him do it in the driveway, but I got tired of parking on the street. So I have him dump it in the street, and then I have a whole week to move it until street side will pick up the rest of it. So that method works well with me. Now, the arbor chips have leaves and woody material in it. So you really want to put it on thickly because the green is going to all decompose. But I think it's better for your soil. I think it's one of the best for adding nutrients to your soil. Hate it. Hate it. Sorry. Yeah, I'm not a fan of gorilla hair. But sometimes, if you have a slope, you need something that kind of mats and stays in place. So sometimes it's good. If you don't like the white and green of the arbor chips, you can always put like a layer of bark mulch over the top of it to kind of hide it until the arbor chips, they turn gray, kind of gray and brown over time, okay?
How do you get in touch with them? Or?
You see, well, find a good arborist. They're worth their weight in gold. If you can find a good arborist, it's good. Or get recommendations from your neighbors, or just contact somebody who's in your neighborhood. I mean, this summer there's definitely going to be people in your neighborhood with.
There's some mulch drops, like there's one in San Mateo by the bay. They come early, so you come with your empty buckets and you put it in there. So, and I think they come from the city because the city does their trimmings for the trees. But that's the only place that I know that you can get from home.
Yeah, in the South Bay, Sunnyvale does also, the city of Sunnyvale, the Smart Station, they have it, but there might be some other areas. But at least you know the term, you know what to ask for, arbor chips.
Okay.
There are, like Lingso in Redwood City, sometimes they sell arbor chips for much cheaper than bark mulch. Okay, so I think we did a pretty nice job. I think it looks, you guys were super on top of it, really working well together as a team. I think you followed instructions really, really well. I think everything is going to do really great. Any other questions that you have? Yes?
On the arbor chips, with certain mulch, make your soil more acidic, like if there's more pine needles in it?
Yes.
Would that be wrong for the soil?
No.
Depending on the plant?
I wouldn't want it to get too acidic, for most natives are used to alkaline soils. But redwood community is all really acid loving. So it really depends. Mostly alkaline is okay, but you still want it a little bit more neutral. But yeah, as mulch breaks down, it tends to kind of even out too. So, questions?
Yeah. Can you if you're doing the above ground planting, do you have to stick with like 1 gallon, or can you go with bigger gallons?
If you're going to do 5 gallon or 15 gallon, you're probably better off planting them first. You're just never going to get a big enough mound for a 15 gallon, or even a 5 gallon is going to be pretty tricky. This method started with a guy, he originally just used 4-inch pots. And for a 4-inch, you're just really putting a little bit of compost around it and just kind of setting it in. It's really designed more for 4-inch. Slicing the bottom, you're almost trying to turn it into a 1 gallon into a 4-inch, you know, make it less deep. So.
Would you prefer to go with a 4-inch?
You're just not going to find the selection. It's hard to find the selection. Yeah. Most of the selection is going to be 1 gallon. Now these are, you can see there's lots of space here, right? Some of those plants, like the low green one here is called emerald carpet. That'll get to be 6 feet in diameter. There's another ceanothus with the yellow and green leaves. That will get very wide as well. Most of them are about 3 feet in diameter at maturity. So this will all pretty much fill in. I don't like to plant really close, because then you have to take plants out, you have to do a lot more pruning. It's more maintenance, and we're trying to be low maintenance. So it's much better to put them in small, let them get started. In a year, these will be the same size as a 5 gallon. So you're better off that way. And they're so much easier for you to do it yourself, a 1 gallon than a 5 gallon. A 5 gallon's a big hole. A 15 gallon is a really big hole. No. Any other questions?
How do you run the drip system?
We have this set up to do 50 minutes 3 or 4 times a week. And then after 2 weeks, they should start to be established. Then we're probably going to go to once a week for the rest of the summer. And then next summer, and I don't know the time, I have to go back and kind of calculate it. And then next summer, I don't know, we'll either do it we'll probably do it every other week after that. We might do it every week. We might keep doing it every week. It's a lot of wind. Things are going to dry out a little bit more, I think, here. So.
My concern is that because it is going to be very hot during summer, and they don't have the protection of the soil on the other side, so these ones, the water is going to evaporate, and they are going to wilt, right?
Well, we do have a lot of mulch. We have 3 inches of mulch there, and they are going to be watered every week. And remember, we're doing this balancing act of trying to give them enough water, but not too much, because we don't want them to get crown rot. So it is a balancing act. I mean, at your house, in fact, here's a really good tip. At your house, if you have any of those water meters for pots, right? You know what I'm talking about, the little soil moisture meters? Use those outside. Go out and check. If you're worried about it, go out and check. Most people, they see a plant wilting and they water right away, and sometimes you can kill a plant by doing that. So you're better off checking the soil, and since we have so much mulch, you're really going to want to check the soil deep down. You don't want to be checking the mulch. The mulch is going to be dry. You want to be checking the soil. And you want to check it close to the plant, not too far out. These are babies. Their root system is pretty small. So we're going to have to see how they do and compare. Okay? Other questions?
How long will it take to fill out?
Usually about 3 years. Yeah. Usually they're getting to be full size at about 3 years. I mean, trees and bigger shrubs, it might take 5 or more years. Trees, more than that. Oak trees, for sure, more than that. But a lot of these perennials, within 3 years, they're going to be full size.
What is the maintenance during that time? Do you need to trim anything?
There'll be some deadheading that you could do. None of these, like the penstemon, you can see how kind of leggy those penstemon are. They don't normally grow that way. They've been pampered at a nursery, probably given a lot of fertilizer to make them really grow. Once they get into the native soil, they're going to slow down. They're not going to be as leggy. But at the end, in the fall, you're going to want to prune those back quite a bit so they start to have some good shape to them. The white, you can't see it, but there's some, it's actually quite a tall shrub. The California bush anemone. It's got little white flowers. It's all kind of folded over right now. It's right behind the cameraman. That's going to be 5 to 6 feet tall. You have to kind of deadhead. It's blooming right now. You'll have to kind of deadhead it, and it does. Part of its natural process is it'll get some brown leaves. You just take those brown leaves off, and you don't have to prune that very much either.
I'm concerned a petrol land where you got sewer line. How deep are these roots? I mean, is it going to?
They're not going to affect a sewer line. No, no. If you had willows,
oh yeah, that's a
or any kind of a plant that really likes a lot of water, you know, a plant that grows near a river or boggy areas. These are all. Well, I mean, some of the. Excuse me. I can't really say. Some of the grasses have really deep roots, but they're still not going to. I've never heard of them invading a sewer line. I've never heard of that. Willows, alders, yes. Yes, yes, exactly. The plant cans I'm going to take back and drop them off at a nursery for reuse. If anybody would like to take some plant cans, the empty ones, you're more than welcome to. But I encourage you, if you do your planting, take them back. A lot of nurseries will take back the cans and reuse them. So you don't have to recycle them or dump them. You can take as many as you want, yes.
Did you design this with the tall in the back and then medium and short?
I was telling somebody else, most of them are pretty low because we have walkways all the way around. The California bush anemone is really the only one that gets to be any height, and that'll get to be about 6 feet tall.
And why in the corner?
The white one that's kind of lying down. Mm-hmm.
And why in the corner?
Just because I didn't think I didn't want anything too tall blocking the entryway. So, yeah, just to have some taller by the railing.
I noticed that is it 2, 3, 5, some plants are single, or you're just looking at the whole landscape to sequence them, the number of plants designed?
I'm mostly just trying to get a lot of color out there because I find that's what people really like. Yeah, and we have a lot of good sun here, so yeah.
Do you have a copy of your landscape at full growth with these guys? I saw that little picture with all the serpents.
He has it.
Oh yeah, I have that. We're going to put it on the web.
Oh, sure, I can. Yeah, if Lourdes wants to. Okay, I think we're about to wrap up. Any other questions?
Did you intentionally put like the matching plants on both sides so that it would look balanced, or is that important when you have two pieces to have?
This really isn't a design class, and I'm just trying to make it as easy to maintain as possible. I could have put a lot of different types of plants in, but I was just really trying to get as much flower color by the sidewalk and things that I just knew were going to bloom most of the summer. So that was really my thinking, just to get a lot of blooms out there. So I would, if anybody is willing to stay a little bit longer and help me move a little bit more mulch, I'd like to get some more into these. Oh, it's not bad. But if you have to go, I totally understand it. You guys have been great. You've worked really hard. Hopefully, you've gained some knowledge and you're ready to tackle your own yard.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right. Take care. Thank you.